Very good morning to all my dear students. In our last week, we have started with Unit 1, wherein we understood what is the meaning of the term constitution. We also dealt with different definitions of constitution given or prescribed by different authors. We spoke about the importance, or you can say the significance of Indian constitution. And in my last class, we spoke about the making of Indian constitution, which led to the framing or drafting of the Indian constitution. So in our today's class, we are going to speak about the features of Indian constitution. Students, this is a very important question from the examination point of view. You may get a question titled as Features of Indian Constitution, Characteristics of Indian Constitution, or what are the silent features of Indian Constitution. Students, there are about 30 features of Indian Constitution. So in your examination, you have to write the heading and explain each feature for about 2 or 3 lines. Okay, so we are going to deal with all the features of Indian Constitution. In our today's class, we are going to complete first 15 features of Indian Constitution, and in our tomorrow's class, we are going to look after the next 15 features of the Indian Constitution. I don't want to hurry up in terms of features of Indian Constitution, as you have to know in detail what are the main characteristics or features of our Indian Constitution. So when I start about this topic called as features of Indian Constitution, students, now when I speak about our country, which is called as Bharat, because it is considered as a union of states. Students, our country is one of the largest democratic country, because when I speak about our country, it has a union of 29 states and 7 union territories. So what has happened is, when I speak about our country, India was ruled by the Britishers, and they were ruled for a period about 500 years, you can say. And till August 15th, 1947, we were under the rule of the Britishers. But on August 15th, 1947, our country became wholly independent, and it was due to the struggle what the eminent personalities undertook so that our country could become sovereign or independent. Hence, in my last class, I explained you the Indian Constitution was passed by the Constituent Assembly on 26th of November 1947. It was regarded as the Constitutional Day, and the Constitution came into force on 26th January 1950. So let's start discussing what are the features of Indian Constitution. So there are about 30 features. You have to write each feature heading and explain about 2 to 3 lines for each feature. Okay? So let's start with the essential features of our Indian Constitution. First feature speaks about our constitution is being regarded as the lengthiest and the detailed constitution in the world. Students, when I speak about our constitution, it is considered to be a most comprehensive document, because our constitution is having about 447 articles in it. It has about 12 schedules, and it is divided into 24 parts. So when I speak about our constitution, it was framed in the year 1950. It was It had come into force also. But what has happened is there were substantial changes that had taken place or are still taking place in the original constitution from the time it has been adopted and it has been proposed. Because with the changing time, it has amended or changed about, or you can say for about 97 times till the year 2012. So, what has happened is, even though our constitution is framed due to the current present scenario, new laws have to be adopted or framed, and hence our country has to follow it also or and adopt it also according to the changing scenario. Now, when I speak about our constitution, it is considered as one of the lengthiest and one of the detailed constitution in the entire world. Now, what are the reasons for it? What are the reasons for bulkiness or detailed constitution of our country is or are? See, what happened is when the framers of the constitution were drafting the constitution, they wanted to avoid what are the loopholes in order to crop in what would happen in future. They thought that they would also incorporate or include what are the different good provisions which are already being adopted by different countries. So what happened is they thought that instead of just concentrating about our own country, they thought of incorporating whatever provisions which were already included in others' constitution. So our constitution contains different provisions of different constitutions of the world. And very importantly, the next reason why it is considered as the lengthiest constitution, because students, when I speak about our constitution, it lays down the structures, it lays down the functions, it lays down the functions, the working of both the central government as well as the union government. So it explains the entire working of the government in detail. I told you that our constitution explains or gives a long list of what are the fundamental rights and what are the fundamental duties, and very importantly, the directive principles of the state policy. So, when everything is included, when we speak about all the loopholes, when we speak about all the entire structure or working of the entire government or the whole government, and when we speak about the fundamental rights and details, it consists of a detailed constitution, and hence our constitution is considered to be the bulkiest, lengthiest, and the detailed constitution in the entire world. The second feature speaks about written constitution. Students, our constitution, that is Indian constitution, is one of the written constitution, and it is enacted by the Constituent Assembly for the same purpose. See, there are several countries who have their constitution which is unwritten. But when I speak about our own country, the constitution of our country is a written constitution. It is considered to be a enacted constitution. It is a formed constitution, and it is also an adopted constitution. It is adopted over a particular period of time, that is in the year 1950. Okay. Now, when I speak about the third feature, that means it is framed by the people. Students, when I speak about it is framed by the people, you have to understand that our preamble of our constitution, which I'll be explaining in the next class, as a citizen of a country, you should be aware what is the preamble of our constitution. So, when I speak about our preamble, the preamble of our constitution clearly indicates that the people of our country have adopted the constitution, and it is given to themselves only. The people of our country only have framed the constitution, and they have adopted the constitution, and it is for themselves. It is the sole criteria or sole purpose for their own motive or for their own working. See, the ultimate or the source behind the sanction of the constitution was, it was mainly because or for the will and the desire of the people of our country. Since the people of our country were not happy regarding the existing government under the British rule, the framers of our constitution decided to frame the Constitution of India according to the wish and will of the citizens of our country. When I speak about the preamble, or you can say when I speak about the entire constitution, it is only and only for the desire and soul of the people of our own country. So when I speak about the constitution, it mainly concentrates towards fulfilling the aspirations of the people or the citizens of our country. Students, what happened is, actually the members of the constituent assembly were at the first go not directly elected by the people, because at that point of time we did not have a system of electing representatives. They were just selected. So at that time the constitution was submitted to the people of India so that they rectify it according to the wish and will of their own minds. The constitution was being adopted according to the rectification done by the people of the country, and hence it so happened that the constitution of our country was mainly due to the adoption of the rectification made by the citizens of their our own country. But the people of our country said that the provisions of the constitutions need to be included with or according to the wish of the people, and hence we can say the constitution of India is framed by the people, for the people, and according to the wish and will of the people or the citizens of our own country. Now when I speak about the fourth feature, which tells us that it is extensively drawn from the Western legal traditions. Now, students, when I speak about our own Indian constitution, it is regarded as a unique document because our constitution has derived from various sources. It is not restrictive in nature. The framers of our constitution tried to incorporate, tried to include the good provisions from the various constitutions of the entire world or the entire global arena. It was after an extensive study of almost 3 years, wherein the existing constitution inspired our constitution makers to make our constitution a lengthiest constitution by incorporating a detailed feature of all the good provisions which are existing in other countries. So, when I speak about extensively drawn from Western legal traditions, you can say that our constitution is not restrictive. It is the provisions, the articles of our constitutions have been derived from the other constitution or from the other sources also. When our framers of the constitution framers thought that these provisions were useful, they were for the betterment and upliftment of the citizens of our country, which could fulfill the desires of the Indian citizens. The framers of the constitution thought of adopting it from the other countries. So when I speak about adopting the constitution or different or some articles from the other constitutions, I can give an example of few. See, when I speak about adoption from Western legal traditions, students, our constitution has adopted, you can say, the idea of single citizenship. That is, we will get only a citizenship of only one country. Then incorporating a parliamentary form of government wherein there is a head and there is council of ministers. Then, when I speak about the law making procedures, when I speak about the idea of rule of law, these all have been adopted from the British constitutions. The framers of the constitution thought that these are considered to be the most important and good provisions. So the constitutional framers incorporated the idea of having single citizenship, the idea of having a rule of law or having a parliamentary form of government from the British rulers, okay, or from the British constitution. Next, when I speak about next incorporation from another country, I can say that our constitutional framers have included a federal structure of government wherein the president is considered as a supreme power, then due processes of law, then about very importantly when I speak about the fundamental rights, students, all these have been adopted from the United States Constitution. So the framers of the Constitution thought that it would be better if they incorporate it, and hence we have derived the sources of these articles from the US Constitution. Next, when I speak about the directive principles, we have included the directive principles of state policy from the Constitution. So, when I speak about the Canadian Constitution, students, the Canadian Constitution follows a quasi federal system of government. Now, when I speak about quasi federal system of government, it is same as that of our Indian Constitution, wherein there is a strong central government, and under the central government, it is decentralized into the various state governments. So, when I speak about the central government, which has the utmost powers, wherein the entire authority is in the hands of the central government, and later it has been decentralized in the hands of the state government. Students, our constitution has adopted it from the Canadian government. Next, when I speak about the fundamental duties, we have adopted the fundamental duties in our constitution from the constitution of USSR. Then, when I speak about the South African Constitution, I told you that the framers of the Constitution has already framed the Constitution by including articles. But it so happens that whenever there is a need for a change, whenever there is a change, or that the present scenario has been changed, there is a need of incorporating or making new laws. At that point of time, there is a need of amendments to the Constitution. When I speak about the word amendment, it means change. And this process of amendment has been incorporated from the South African Constitution. So, when I speak about the fourth feature, which speaks that it is extensively drawn from the Western legal traditions, we can say that our constitution has been derived from different sources from the entire world. The next feature, which speaks about the sovereignty of the people. Students, when I speak about the word sovereignty, the beginning words of our preamble, which says that we, the people of India, indicates that it is the sovereignty of people in our Indian government, which truly indicates that the supreme authority behind the constitution is the people themselves. It is for the will of the people of our country. Hence, when I speak about the Constitution of India, it declares the people of the country to be the supreme authority. It says that it is for the wish and will of the people. But prior to it, earlier to it, students, the scenario was completely different, because earlier it was the supreme authority lied in the hands of the British Parliament. It was not under the rule of the people of our own country. And hence the people of our country were not happy with the existing rule of the Britishers. It was only after when our country became independent, the people of our country got a independent status wherein the people of our country were regarded as the supreme authority. The constitution of our country was solely made in order to incorporate the changes made for the desires and the wills of the people. Hence, it is very important to know that the constitution of our country mainly indicates the supreme authority behind the constitution, that it is for the wish and it is for the people, and the people themselves have drafted this. Okay. Now, when I speak about the sixth feature, that speaks about republican form of government. Students, when I speak about republican form of government, it is very important to know that the provisions of the preamble has proclaimed that the Indians have given themselves a republican form of government. When I speak about the term republican or republic, it clearly, in simple terms or in simple language, means that there is a head of a country, and the head of the country is being elected. Elected means each and every person has a right to say, has a right to vote, and it is they, and the head of the country is being elected by the people, and it is not according to the hereditary claims, means it is not passing from generation to generation. When I speak about the republic form of government, our government is framed in such a way wherein we have a head of a government. Along with it, we have the Council of Ministers working hand in hand, and all these are elected and they are not selected. Very importantly, you have to understand that when I speak about the word republic, it means you have a head and you have Council of Ministers, and those are elected and not selected. Students, prior to independence, the British king was regarded as the head of the country. But later, once we got independence in the year 1947, the president of our country is being regarded as the head of the country. And very importantly, we have to understand that the when I speak about the republican form of government, or when I speak about republic, we have a central authority wherein the head are working, wherein we have a head who is working as the entire authorital change, bringing change, and he is the person who is acting as a head, followed by different council ministers, and accordingly he is being elected and not selected. The very important feature which speaks about the democratic state. Students, when I speak about a democracy, Indian government is elected by the people and can be removed by them after a fixed period. Now, you must be aware of the term called as elections, wherein you elect a person for a fixed period. Now, there are different elections taking place in our country, and the tenure means the length of service varies. Maybe it is for 3 years, maybe it is usually for 5 years, etc. So, when I speak about a democratic state, students, it is based on adult purchase, means that the elected members have to conduct their responsibility or undergo their responsibility for a fixed period of time. They are elected by the people of our country, and the people have right to remove them after their tenure is over. If they are in favor, they can elect the same person if he is interested, and that same person can continue his service. But when they feel that there is a need of change, when I speak about democracy, every citizen in our country has a right to vote, wherein they will get a right wherein they can give their own views regarding, or they can have their own say regarding the head and the council of the ministers, wherein they can continue the same person, or after his service or tenure is over, they have a right to remove him. So this is called as a democratic state. Now let's see to the next feature, which speaks about secularism, which is very, very peculiar and a very important feature of Indian Constitution. Students, when I speak about secularism, our country is one of the most secular country in the entire global world, because the constitution of our country provides for a secular state. See, when I speak about the preamble of our country, it states that India is a secular state. Because, students, when I speak about secularism, in our country, all religions are equal on the line of Sarva Dharma Samabhav. This is a protocol which has been followed, which states that Sarva Dharma Samabhav. It means that our country, you can say, is neutral to all the religions. Okay. Now, when I speak about secularism, students, there is no state sponsored religion or a country wise religion. We give equal status to all sorts of religion. Okay. There are different religions prevailing in our country. And when I speak about secularism, students, you have to understand that every person in our country has a right to preach any sort of religion, practice any religion, and spread any religion they choose. So, this is a right which is conferred by the constitution of our country. It does not force any religion to follow any peculiar religion. The citizens of our country are allowed to preach, are allowed to practice any sort of religion or any religion according to the wish, will, and desire. Now, here, when I speak about secularism, students, all citizens in our country, irrespective of their religious beliefs, are considered to be equal in the eyes of law, because no citizen or no religion is given a independent status, or you can say a supreme status. So, what has happened is no religions are instructed or imparted in the government aided schools, nor in terms of governmental working. It is considered to be a secular country, and hence all are equal in the eyes of law. When I speak about secularism, students, here you have to understand that all the religions are equal in the eyes of law. There is no specific religion in our country, and it is very important to practice any sort of religion according to their own wish and will of the country. Next, when I speak about the next point, which is very simple, which speaks about single citizenship. See, even though I told you our country is a huge country, wherein our country is divided, it is a union of state, students. Means when I speak about union of states, it has about 29 states, and it is divided into 7 union territories. Now, what has happened, even though if our country is so huge in nature, we follow a single citizenship. That is, the citizens of our country are allowed to get only one citizenship of a country. But when I speak about other countries, example I can give is of US. Okay, When I speak about USA, there is the system of dual citizenship. Students, when I speak about dual citizenship, it means two. When I speak about single, it means one. So when I speak about dual citizenship, students, there they get a citizenship of a state and they get one more citizenship of the union. But when I speak about our own country, even though we have n number of states having different cultures, when I speak about our country, every citizen is liable to get only one citizenship of the country. And we do not allow dual citizenship, that is, citizenship of state and citizenship of country. Example, you will not get a citizenship of your own state, that is Karnataka. At the same time, you will not get a citizenship of your country, India. You will be only called as a citizen of the country, and hence you will get only one citizenship. Next point, which speaks about universal adult franchise. Very, very important. Students, when I speak about this universal adult franchise, here adult franchise means the citizens of the country are eligible to vote in the elections, and this is known as adult franchise or universal adult franchise. The people of our country are allowed to vote in the elections. Now, many countries' students are fighting for incorporating these rules, but the framers of our constitution has guaranteed or has given every citizen of our country a right to vote in the elections. Students earlier, you can say about in the year 1890s or so, the citizens above the age of 21 years were allowed to vote. But recently, there is an amendment wherein the eligibility for voting has changed to a majority system wherein you are allowed to vote at the age of 18 years. So there is a difference. Earlier, as a democratic country, you were allowed to have a say, you were allowed to vote, and every citizen of a country was allowed to vote in the elections. This is called as adult franchise. When I speak about the word adult franchise, each and every citizen of a country has a right to vote. Many countries have not incorporated this rule, and there is a strong struggle behind it. But the constitutional framers thought it that it is very important because we follow a sovereignty power, wherein, when I speak about sovereignty, the supreme power is laid in the hands of the people. It is according to the wish and will of the people that the election system takes place, and hence each and every citizen of our country is being guaranteed with the right to vote. So currently, when a person attains the age of 18 years, you are being allowed to vote, and this is called as adult franchise. So when I speak about adult franchise, students, it ensures that all the citizens in our country are able to elect the representatives following the process of selecting them. And hence, you have to understand that the representatives of our country are being elected and they are not selected. They are elected in the form of right to vote given to each and every citizen who attains the age of 18 years, and this is called as adult franchise. The 11th feature, which speaks about fundamental rights and duties. I told you that the Constitution of India provides both fundamental rights as well as duties, and hence this is called as the bulkiest constitution in the whole world. Students, when I speak about fundamental rights, it so happened that there were no previous laws in the country or in India provided fundamental rights and duties. But later, after the struggle or the working of the Indian constitution, you can say that there is a separate chapter which speaks about the fundamental rights and fundamental duties which are conferred by the constitution of India to each and every citizen. In our next chapter, we are going to speak in detail about each fundamental right and each fundamental duty provided or conferred to the citizens of the country. Same way, the 12th feature, which speaks about the directive principles of state policy. Now, students, it is the directive principles of the state policy have been incorporated and been implemented because there should be a separate status that should be evaluated to the fundamental rights, wherein there is a separate chapter which speaks about the directive principles of the state policy, wherein the Constitution of India gives a separate and an independent status to the state policy, wherein the state gets the independent status before enforcing any sort of laws. I can give you the best example for directive principles of state policy. The best example could be right to education. This is a right, or this is a directive principle of the state policy, and it has been now given the status of a fundamental right, wherein each and every citizen has a right to education, at least the basic and primary education. So what happens is, when I speak about directive principles, the Constitution of India has given a separate chapter regarding the by incorporating the directive principles of the state policy. Next, the 13th feature, which speaks about the judicial review. Students, when I speak about the judicial review, you have to understand that the power of judiciary, I told you in my last class, there are three organs: legislative, executive, and judiciary. Now, when I speak predominantly regarding the judiciary, students, the judiciary has a right to declare the law as unconstitutional. They have a right to understand law. They have a right to review the law. They have a right to understand law. And they also have a right to implement the law in the form of cases which come before them. When I speak about the judiciary of our country, students, the judiciary of our country acts like a guardian of the constitution because it safeguards the constitutional laws. It helps us to understand the constitutional laws. It interprets the laws, and hence it is considered as a very important organ. The judicial review is made through the judicial processes, wherein it so happens that any law passed by the legislature or any action which is taken by the executives is subjected and must undergo the judicial scrutiny. If it does not go the judicial scrutiny, then nothing can escape from the eyes of law. Even though no doubt the legislature make laws, the executives implement it. After making of laws, after implemented it is very important that the laws have to undergo a scrutiny in the eyes of the judiciary system. So the judges play a very important role in understanding the law, interpreting the law, and declaring the law as unconstitutional, wherein when needed they try to make even amendments to the laws. Next, the 14th feature, which speaks about unique blend of rigidity and flexibility. Students, our constitution has a unique blend. It is a mixture of both. It is rigid as well as flexible. Because when I speak about this combination, rigidity and flexibility, you can say that a constitution may be regarded as rigid or it is flexible. on the basis of amending procedure. Amending means changing procedures. Now, what happened? Even though the laws are being framed in the constitution, whenever there is a changing need, whenever there is a present scenario wherein there is a need for changing, there it is required by the legislature to incorporate new laws. And hence you can say that it is a blend of both, because the constitution does not want to change the basic structure of the constitution, which is already been framed. Hence it has been regarded that it is rigid. It does not want to change. At the same time, when I speak about flexibility, whenever there is a need, they have to incorporate the changes. So you can say it is both. It is rigid as well as flexible. It is rigid in the terms of not changing the basic structure of the constitution, which has already been framed, and it is flexible in terms wherein they have to incorporate changes whenever there is a need. Now, when I speak about the constitution of US, or you can say about Switzerland, Australia, they are considered to be a rigid constitutions. But when I speak about British constitution, it is considered to be a flexible. But I told you in my last features that we have derived the sources from the westerns. So hence what happened is we have a blend, a combination of both. We incorporate rigidness also, we incorporate flexibility also. And the last feature, which speaks about amendment of the constitution. Students, there is a separate chapter wherein there is a separate articles which gives you the process, which gives you how to incorporate changes and how to make changes. This is also a very important feature of Indian constitution, wherein it gives a detailed picture regarding the amendment. So the constitutional framers had incorporated this amendment of the constitution in one separate chapter, wherein the citizens of our country, according to the changing scenario, can change or bring amendments to the laws already been framed. Okay, so there are in all 31 or 30 features of Indian constitution. We cannot take into consideration all the features at the first go itself. So in our today's class, we have dealt with the first 15 features, and the next 15 features would be dealt in the next class or explained in my tomorrow's class. Students, you have to write the heading as it is and at least write 2 to 3 sentences below it. This is a very important question from the examination point of view. This usually comes in part B of your paper, which speaks about the features of Indian constitution. It speaks about the silent, you can say it or you can call it as a silent features, or you can also call it as characteristics of Indian constitution. In our tomorrow's class, we are going to deal with the other 15 features of the Indian constitution. Okay, with this, I conclude my today's class. Have a good day. Take care.